Hi, Verbling. My name's Michaela. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and today we're talking about verbs, gerunds and infinitives, and how we use those with other verbs. If you have any questions or comments, you can let me know in my mailbox here on Verbling or on Facebook. I'll put my Facebook name in the chat box for you. And to start the class today, we'll do a quick conversation about favorite fruits and vegetables. So I want everyone to answer the question about what your favorite vegetable is and your least favorite fruit. So I'll start by saying that my favorite vegetable is broccoli, for sure. I love broccoli, so good. My least favorite fruit, this one's harder, but I think maybe grapes. I don't like the texture of grapes. So I don't hate them, but I don't really like them. All right, guys, your turn. Tell me your favorite vegetables and your least favorite fruits. And then we'll get started with the topic of the day, which is verbs, gerunds and infinitives. And if you guys are curious, I do tutoring as well. You guys are welcome to send me a message if you're curious about my schedule or prices or just to say hi. And I'm going to screen share the notes that we're going to be looking at today. So after we get done with our little conversation, we're going to move to gerunds and infinitives. Adela, welcome to class. Adela, you're muted.
Yes, hello.
There we go.
Hello, Michaela.
Hi, Adela, how are you? It's been a while.
Sorry?
How are you? It's been a while since I've seen you.
I changed my picture, no?
Yeah, you have changed your picture.
Yes, it's a lot of
It's more artistic
time.
now.
Yeah, it's my it's a selfie, no?
Yeah, it's a
Partial
selfie.
selfie.
So Adela, tell me about your favorite vegetable and your least favorite fruit.
My favorite vegetable, maybe tomato.
Okay, why is that your favorite vegetable?
I like, but not all kind of tomatoes, because I like a kind of tomatoes here in Valencia is very is sweet. Is not so. It's very sweet, and I like too the cherry tomatoes.
Got it. And what's your least favorite fruit?
The least fruit, maybe I like maybe the apple, or apple maybe.
So you don't like apples very much?
No, because it's a winter fruit is here in Spain. There are others types of fruit more delicious for me, but they are apples. Types of apples are very sweet, very. I like too, but it's the least. I like all fruits. Sorry.
All right, thanks, Adela. Aldona, to get started, tell us about your favorite vegetable and your least favorite fruit.
Well, I love all vegetables, all fruits except bananas, which I found quite heavy as for my stomach. I don't know
Mm.
why. I prefer apples, pears, strawberries,
All right.
and
What's your favorite vegetable?
vegetable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love potatoes.
Yeah, that's a good one. You can have them fried or mashed or in
Yes.
soup. You can have them anyway.
hmm
All right. So today we're talking about gerunds and infinitives. So let's start by explaining what those are. Aldona, what is a gerund and what is an infinitive?
To read it or just
Yeah, well, just tell us a little bit about it before we read it.
okay? So all English gerunds usually um, take or they end with ing form,
Mm-hmm.
and they may be used as a noun. For
Mm-hmm.
example, flying is not my favorite activity.
Excellent. Yeah. And what about infinitives? What is an infinitive?
It's just a verb
Mm-hmm.
with with the beginning to. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I like to go to the beaches, for example.
Yeah. Awesome. And another way to think of that is that it's the unconjugated form. So, especially in translation into Spanish and stuff, it usually is like the unconjugated form of the verb. Thank you very much, Aldona. That was a great description of these two. And you pretty much covered our first little bit here. You gave us all this information. Actually, maybe, yeah, all of this information. So we won't read it. Let's go down and see some examples. So today we're going to be focusing on when a verb follows a verb. So when we have two verbs in a row, sometimes it'll take the gerund form and sometimes it'll take the infinitive form. And Adela, how do we know when to use the gerund form and when to use the infinitive form?
Sorry, sometimes depend to the verb who that precede to the gerund or infinitive. Maybe they are verb as a like, love, etc. Use infinitive, use gerund, and the
Mm-hmm.
others they are I don't remember exactly, but the others only can have after the infinitive form. Infinitive form.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Marius, welcome to class.
Hello, hello.
How are you today, Marius?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Excellent. So today we're talking about gerunds and infinitives and how we use them with other verbs. Have you already seen this topic before?
No.
Okay, then I'm going to do a quick review before we continue on in our notes. So today, that highlighted part, we're going to be talking about verbs that follow other verbs, because sometimes in English we use the gerund form, which is the ing form, swimming, running, loving, and other times we use the infinitive form, like to swim, to run, to jump. So we're going to learn a little bit more about how we know which form to use. And tell us your favorite vegetable and your least favorite fruit, Marius.
My favorite vegetable, maybe tomato,
Mm-hmm.
and my favorite fruit would be the apple.
Wow, so why is the apple your favorite fruit?
Mm,
Or did you say least
because
favorite?
because an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah, that's true. Great expression. They're very
Yes,
healthy for you.
and I like it. I don't know, but I like it very much.
So if apples are your favorite fruit, what is your least favorite fruit?
Um, I don't know. I don't have a least favorite fruit.
All right.
I have to think.
All right. We'll get back to you on that one then. Thanks, Marius.
Okay.
And Marius, will you read some of these examples for us in the notes, the part that I'm highlighting?
Okay. Some verbs can take either the gerund or the infinitive with no loss of meaning. For example, with the verb start, it started to rain, or it started raining. Both sentences have the same meaning. Sometimes the use of the gerund or infinitive changes the meaning of the sentence. For example, with the verb remember, I remembered to do my homework, or I remembered doing my homework.
Thanks. So we've got 4 categories of verbs, and we're going to look more closely at these in a minute. But the 4 categories are verbs that are followed by a gerund, verbs that are followed by an infinitive, verbs that can be followed by both, and verbs that can be followed by both, but there's a big change in the meaning of the sentence. So we have those 4 categories. And let's talk a little bit. Obviously, the category that can be followed by both with no change in meaning, that's a great category because it doesn't matter at all. You can choose and you're always right. So that's a great category. The more difficult category is verbs that change in meaning because sometimes the meaning difference is very subtle. So let's talk about what this sentence means. We have the sentence, I remembered to do my homework, and I remembered doing my homework. Adela, what's the difference between those 2 sentences?
Maybe the difference is in the first they don't do the homework. In the second, he's doing the homework when he remember something.
Okay, you're close, but let's explain it in a different way. Aldona, can you try and explain the difference between those 2 sentences?
Well, there's explanation below, as I can see.
But give us your own words, though.
Okay, I remember to do my homework. It means that it may mean that a speaker has more things to do and he must do his homework first.
Okay.
So,
Question?
no, after when finish
Okay.
Aldona.
Finish up, Aldona. Was that it, Aldona? Oh, go ahead.
And with the second sentence, I remember doing my homework. I don't guess, but maybe he wants to say that this homework took him some time to do.
Sort of. So, Adela, what else did you have to say?
I say in the first to do is the object of the remember, no? What remember to do? What my homework is the object about the remember, and the other I think no.
Yeah, you guys are getting closer.
The action in the first, the action is remember. In the second, the action is he is doing the homework. Do
Mhm. Yeah. So this is pretty hard concept to understand, but it's even harder to explain, which is why this is such a tough exercise. I'm going to welcome Simone to class. Simone, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great. Tell us your favorite vegetable and your least favorite fruit, and then we're going to go on.
Okay, my favorite vegetable is actually I don't know if it's a vegetable. I think it's a fruit. Is tomato.
Yeah, that's one that people usually count it as a vegetable, but I think you're right. It's technically a fruit. So is
Yeah,
that your least favorite fruit, or is it your favorite vegetable?
yeah, it's my favorite vegetable. I don't know if it's vegetable, but it is my favorite.
All right. And what's your least favorite fruit?
My least favorite fruit. I can't say because I love fruits. Maybe it's a fruit that only has here in Brazil. Um, it's called graviola, but I think it's
Oh,
only a
that's so
Brazilian kind of
good.
fruit.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's not really exported much, but I think it's so good.
Yeah, do you know?
Yeah, I lived in Brazil for a couple years.
Yeah, but I don't like it. It tastes like a little bit, I don't know, strange for me.
Well, I think it's delicious, but I guess that's because for me it seems so exotic that I think it's
Yeah,
wonderful.
maybe. So can I try to explain the difference between?
Yes, please do.
So, for example, I think the first one, I remembered to do my homework. I was like doing anything, and I remembered, oh, I have to do my homework. And in the second one, now I am thinking, oh, I'm remembering the exact time when I was doing my homework. No?
Exactly. That's a great explanation. And that's kind of a tough one, too. So basically, the difference is in the order. And as Aldona pointed out, there's a written explanation here, although you guys did a great job of giving me your own explanations. And the written explanation just says, in the first sentence, I remembered to do my homework. The person speaking remembered they had some homework first, then carried out the action and did it. And in the second sentence, I remembered doing my homework. The person speaking carried out the action, their homework, first, and then remembered doing it. So the order is a little flip-flopped. All right. Any questions before we go on and see some examples of verbs that are followed by gerunds and infinitives? Okay. So here are the four categories. I'm going to show them all to you. We've got verbs that are followed by gerunds, verbs that are followed by infinitives, verbs that can be used with no change in meaning for both of them. So gerund or infinitive, everything is right for this third category here. And then, of course, the last and hardest category, verbs that do have a change in meaning. So that's like the last example we saw. It's very difficult to explain, and it's even more complex, but we're going to leave that until the end. We're going to do the easy stuff first and work our way up to that last section. So first, let's talk about some of the verbs that are followed by the gerund form, and I'm going to have Marius read the section. We've got a lot of verbs here. Just read all the different verbs, and we'll talk a little bit about them.
Okay. Verbs that are normally followed by the gerund form: acknowledge, admit, adore, anticipate, appreciate, avoid, celebrate, confess, contemplate, delay, deny, describe, detest, discuss, dislike, dread, endure, enjoy, fancy, finish, imagine, involve, keep, justify, mention, mind, miss, omit, postpone, practice, quit, recall, recommend, regret, report, resent, resume, risk, suggest, tolerate, understand.
Thank you very much for reading all of those for us. Now I'm going to ask you guys to define a few of them. Most of these verbs you probably have already seen before, but I'm going to ask you to define a few of them for those who might not already know them. And if you get a verb that you don't know, feel free to look up the definition online or ask me. So Adela, write a definition in the chat box for the word deny. Deny. Aldona, write a definition for the word dread. Marius, write a definition for the word endure. And Simone, write a definition for fancy. So write those definitions in the chat box. Or if you can't write in the chat box, you can, of course, just say it vocally to me. And we've got one already. It's in the Google chat box, and I'll copy and paste it over to the other chat box. We've got the word dread, to be afraid. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So to be afraid of something or to have kind of like a negative anticipation. So some kind of negative anticipation for a future event. We see the definition for delay. To arrive later or not on time. Yeah. Or maybe another good synonym would be postpone. Endure is like resist or maybe like to survive something very difficult. And fancy, to like someone or something. Yes. So fancy is actually usually used in British English. It's not as much used as a verb in American English, although I would understand it. I don't use it as frequently. So that's why I thought that one was an interesting one. And I'll put all of these in both of the chat boxes just in case someone's working with just one. Do you guys have any other questions on the definitions for those verbs? Awesome. So then let's make some sentences. You guys already know that these are the verbs that are going to be followed by the gerund form. I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to ask you to work with a verb and write a sentence for me. So I'll give you an example with admit. How about? I admit committing the crime. I admit committing the crime. So the verb I give you is going to be the main verb in the sentence, and then you're going to follow that verb by a gerund ing verb. So in here we have admit committing. My ing verb is committing. All right. I'm going to assign you guys verbs now. Simone, can you use avoid? Marius, can you use confess? Aldona, contemplate. And Adela, how about detest? So you guys are going to write a sentence using your verb followed by a gerund in the chat box. Excellent. I always avoid doing the hard work. Yes. And since everyone else is still writing, Simone, write another sentence using the verb deny. D-E-N-Y. Deny. I detest writing with the tablet. Yeah, me too. It's tough. Next, I see. Finally, he confessed the crime. That's an awesome sentence, Marius, but we don't have a gerund after the verb. So what we're working on here is following a verb with another verb. So you might use something like do. He he finally confessed doing the crime, committing the crime, something like that. That way we have a verb followed by another verb. Next up, she contemplates throwing party at home. Awesome sentence, but we have one mistake. Aldona, do you see the mistake in that sentence?
A party?
Yeah, exactly. We need an article or something. Awesome. And the last one, I don't deny hating her. Good one. All right. Now that we've tried that out, let's go to the next category and try out some of these verbs. Simone, will you read the verbs for us first? Simone, are you there?
Oh, yes. Sorry. I am using my iPad, so I can't see properly, but I try.
Ah.
Oh, my. Disappeared.
Girl.
Sorry.
I'll try to make them a little
Sorry
bigger.
about that. Where is the text? Can
I
I
made them
read later, please? Because I can't see.
Sure. Sure, no problem.
Sorry.
That's okay. Adela, go for it. Read these.
Okay. Afford, agree, appear, arrange, ask, attempt, care, choose, claim, come, consent, dare, decide, demand, deserve, determine, elect, endeavor, expect, fail, get, guarantee, hate, help, hesitate, hope, hurry, incline, intend, learn, long, manage, mean, need, offer, plan, prepare, pretend, promise, refuse, resolve, say, seem, tend, threaten, want, wish.
Awesome. Thanks. So let's define a few of these before we go on. Adela, define attempt. The word attempt. Aldona, define the word consent. Marius, define the word endeavor. And Simone, how about long? Define the verb long. Excellent. We've got one already. Consent is to give permission. Attempt is to try. And since Simone just dropped off, endeavor is to try hard. Yeah. So attempt is to try, endeavor is to try really hard, when you're working really hard at something. And since Simone dropped off, can anybody define the verb long?
Miss something?
Yeah, it can be like miss, some kind of deep emotional feeling from separation maybe. All right, so let's make a couple sentences with these. Marius, make a sentence with the verb. How about choose? And you're going to follow that verb with an infinitive form. So I'll give you guys an example. I can afford to take a vacation. Afford to take a vacation. So you guys are going to follow your verb by another verb. Aldona, can you use dare? And Adela, can you use, how about deserve? Simone, you're back.
Yes, I am trying to fix the problem, but isn't working. I can't see the words. My gosh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Can you see the chat box?
Yes, I can.
Then I'll copy paste these verbs into the chat box for you.
I appreciate. Thank you.
Of course. And Simone, right now we're making sentences. Can you use the verb endeavor and follow it by an infinitive to make a sentence? And we have a couple already ready. I can choose to study English or Latin. Perfect, Marius. Thank you. He deserves to win the race. Excellent, Adela. Thank you. You guys can.
My example.
Oh, did I miss it?
Yes.
Sorry. Ah, there we are. How dare you to speak to your boss like that? Interesting. So it's a good sentence, but we have a slight problem here. The slight problem is just that we have a subject that's in between the verb and the infinitive, and that makes it sound pretty awkward. It's not totally correct. So we can only use the to infinitive if there's nothing in between those two. So you might say something like, I can't believe that he dares to speak to his boss in that manner. So it kind of would be the same idea, but just taking that subject out. So, I can't believe. I put that one in the chat box. And the last sentence we have is, they endeavor to do that project. Great. Awesome. You guys totally have this. So let's go on. This is the easiest one. This is the easiest section. You can use both. So this time you guys are going to write two sentences, and they're going to end up meaning the exact same thing. They're going to be one with a gerund and one with an infinitive. So you guys are going to write two sentences that are exactly the same except for the form of the verb after the main verb. Simone, write a sentence, and Simone, I'm going to copy paste these for you as well and put them into the chat box.
Thank you very much.
Of course. And Simone, will you write a sentence with the verb neglect? Neglect followed by a gerund and then followed by an infinitive. Marius, use prefer. Aldona, use try. And Adela, use continue. Excellent. We've got one ready. They try to do their best. They try being polite with her. All right. Excellent. Two sentences, one followed with a to infinitive, the other followed with an ing. Both totally correct. Thank you, Aldona. And Ahmed in the chat box. We're glad to have you here with us. If you feel like participating, you're totally welcome. You can write some sentences for us in the chat box, and I'll be happy to correct them and talk a little bit about them. And next up, I continue to learn English. I continue learning English. Excellent, Adela. Both of those sentences are exactly the same. Next up, we have that mother neglects taking care of her kids. Yes. And the other version would be that mother neglects to take care of her kids. Also possible. Both are fine. And we're just waiting on one more set. Great. I prefer to watch that movie, or I prefer watching that movie. Both are exactly the same. Okay, so those are the easy ones. And right now, we're going to do a little more practice with these. I'm going to make these a different font so that we can all see them in the same screen. We're going to do some sentences, but this time I'm not going to tell you where the verb comes from. So you guys are going to have to find the verb on one of these lists and then decide how to put them in the sentence. So it's not that hard, but you're just going to have to do a little of the work yourself and find out which, if it's going to be followed by an infinitive or if it's going to be followed by a gerund.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm going to ask Adela to make a sentence with resolve, Aldona to make a sentence with resent, Marius to make a sentence with threaten, and Simone make a sentence with omit. Omit. Okay, we've got one sentence ready. I resolved to have an appointment with my boss. That sentence is good, but it's a little bit odd because of the context. So resolve kind of means like when you make up your mind about something that you want to do in the future, something very difficult usually. And that's why we call, at the new year, everyone says we have these resolutions. It's like a decision you make, and it's going to require a lot of motivation and determination over a long period of time. So although it's a good sentence, it's a little bit weird because usually getting an appointment with your boss is not as difficult as the verb resolve would imply. But other than that, it's a great sentence. Thanks, Adela. Next up, I resent giving away your secret. Excellent, Aldona. Well done.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, they threatened to kill the man. Yes, wonderful sentence, Marius. And the last one, I omit doing charity work because I don't like to show myself off. Okay. I would say probably for that sentence you can omit the word myself. You can take that out because usually we just say I don't like to show off. If you were saying show myself off, that might mean if you were talking about your actual body, like if you have a new dress on, or so it's a possibility. But I think what you meant was show off, like.
Yes, yes.
All right. Thanks, Simone. Great sentence.
Thank you.
And we've got one from Ahmed as well. I promise to love you till I die. Excellent sentence. So his main verb is promise, and it's followed by to love. Okay, let's do one more round of this before we go on to the last column of verbs. And Simone, I'm going to ask you to use the verb seem. Marius, use the verb regret. Aldona, use the verb, how about mention? Mention. Okay. And Adela, intend. And Ahmed, if you want to do another sentence, try the verb offer. And if you guys have any questions while you're working, you're welcome to ask. I don't regret learning English. Excellent sentence, Marius. Oh, Adela, you had a question on your verb?
Yes, what verb? Sorry, I don't hear.
I think I gave you intend.
Okay.
And Marius, since you're already done and you're just waiting, feel free to make one more sentence using the verb. How about recommend? Use the verb recommend this time, while we wait for the other sentences. She mentioned being in the same wavelength with her hubby. That's a cute one. So it's a good one because we've got mentioned plus a gerund. And when you say the same wavelength, you mean like when they're on the same page, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then hubby, tell us what hubby is. It's kind of a slang term for something.
Isn't a husband?
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty casual term, or maybe even slang for like a husband. It's a very endearing, affectionate term. Awesome. The next sentence, I intend to do homework, but it was very difficult. Oh yeah, intended. Perfect, Adela, thanks. And I offer you to buy my car. Okay. So that's an awesome sentence, but it has one small problem that we talked about a little earlier, and that's the subject. So for this to work, we really cannot have that you in between the two verbs. So a better way to phrase that sentence, keeping it correct and without that subject there, would be I make an offer. Well, it doesn't work. How about it's a little bit hard, actually. You can say, no, we can't use actually those exact things. You can say, I offer, or you offer to buy my car. Or even something like, I want you to offer to buy my car. So that way we can keep those two verbs directly in contact, and that gives it a little help for logic. Okay, any questions on any of this before we go on to the last and most difficult column of verbs? Great. So now we're going to talk about these three verbs. There are not that many verbs that have a change in meaning, which is good because this is difficult, as we already saw. We've got the verb forget, the verb remember, and the verb stop. For example, earlier we saw an example with remember. Now we're going to see an example with forget. And our example here is, I forgot to feed the cat, and I forgot feeding the cat. This makes a very big difference, although it's a little different than the example we saw with remember. So I forgot to feed the cat means that the cat is hungry and the cat has not been fed. You might have a dead cat if that happens for too long. But in the second sentence, I forgot feeding the cat, it means the cat is okay, you fed him, and then you forgot about it. So in some ways this is different, but in some ways it's the same, because the focus is on which happened first. The first one means you forgot and no action occurred. The second one means you fed the cat and then you forgot. So the order is a little switched around. Do you guys have any questions on that?
No.
Awesome. Now let's talk about stop, because stop is a little different as well. I'm going to give you guys a couple sentences. I'll put them in the chat box, and then you have to try to tell the difference between the sets of sentences. I stopped smoking. And I stopped to smoke. So what's the difference between these two sentences? Marius, can you give us an idea?
I stopped smoking. I don't know.
All right, Aldona, you want to give it a try? What's the difference there?
Yes, I tried. I stopped smoking. It means that it was in the past. I forgot about it. Now I stopped smoking.
Okay, and what
I'm
about the
okay
other?
now. I stopped to smoke. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, this one's tough. So I'll give you guys an explanation here. The first one, Aldona, you were pretty close here. The first one means that you smoked for a long time and then you quit. You stopped smoking and now you don't smoke anymore. The second sentence means that you were doing something like maybe working or walking or driving, and you stopped that action in order to smoke. So in the second sentence, you're smoking. It's like, I was working and then I stopped to smoke. So I stopped working and I started smoking in the second sentence. So these ones are actually very different. The first one means that you're never going to smoke again, and the second one means that you're smoking right now. All right.
Okay.
So now I'd like you guys to create two sentences just like I did for stop. So use stop with an ing and with a to infinitive, and then we're going to describe the difference between those sentences. So take a minute and make some sentences and try to wrap your head around what the difference is. All right, so one's ready. I stopped to phone her and I stopped talking to him. Good, they're not exactly the same sentence. How about, we'll just change the second one to I stopped phoning her. That way we've got two that are exactly the same. I stopped to phone her and I stopped phoning her. So explain to us the difference, Aldona.
But I know the difference. I stopped to phone her. It means that I was doing something and then I stopped it to make a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And
Excellent.
the second is I don't want to phone her anymore. I stopped having any, I don't know, relationship with her, so any contact with her, now I never phone her.
Mm-hmm.
The past.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. And I see we have some from Ahmed as well. I stopped driving and I stopped to drive. So Ahmed, give us an explanation in the chat box about what the difference is between those two sentences. What does the first one mean and what does the second one mean? And Marius, are you almost ready? Awesome. While I was working, I stopped to do the task. Okay, good. And what if we were to change that to while I was working, I stopped doing the task? explain to me the difference between those two sentences.
While I was working, I stopped to do the task. Then I stopped. I'm not doing the task anymore.
Mm-hmm. So, well, I think you might have confused them. So the first one you put in, while I was working, I stopped to do the task. It means that it means the opposite of what you just said, right?
Okay.
Yeah, this is tough, and they're pretty confusing because they seem really similar. But the one that you wrote, while I was working, I stopped to do the task, it means you stopped working and then you started doing something else. Maybe the task is cleaning your bedroom. So you stopped working and you started cleaning your bedroom. That's the sentence that you wrote. But if you changed it to say, while I was working, I stopped doing the task, it meant that maybe your task was to crochet a blanket, but you had to stop because you were working.
Okay, I understood now.
Great.
Okay.
And we've got an explanation from Ahmed. I stopped driving means I'm not drive anymore. I left driving. Yeah, great. So I've got a couple corrections to make on that sentence, though. I stopped driving means I don't drive anymore. Instead of I am not, we would change that to don't. And I stopped to drive means I stopped just for now, or just now for any reason, but I still driving. Not exactly. So that second sentence would mean that you stopped doing something else and you started to drive. So you're driving at that very moment. All right. Now we're going to try one more brain problem, and it's going to take a second, I think. We're going to add negatives in. So what if I said, actually, I'll ask you guys to write these sentences. Aldona, write a sentence with forget using the to infinitive and the gerund form, but use a negative. So something like, I didn't forget to feed the cat, and I didn't forget feeding the cat.
Okay.
All right. And Marius, you're going to use remember and use it with a negative. So you're going to use it with both of the to infinitive and the gerund, but add a negative in there somewhere. And Ahmed, if you want to do this as well, you can try stop. So you're going to use stop and add a negative in there and make two sentences, one with the infinitive and one with the gerund. All right, we've got a couple in the Google chat box. I wouldn't forget to visit you, and I wouldn't forget visiting you. Aldona, explain to us the difference between those sentences.
Well, in the first sentence, I was doing something and I stopped doing it because I went to visit somebody. So it was, I wouldn't forget to visit you. The sentence might be taken from my conversation with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't forget visiting you. I would never forget to visit somebody. Can be in this way?
So the first one sounded good. I'm a little fuzzy on what your explanation for the second one was.
Okay, it might be taken from a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I may explain to the other person that I was working hard, but I wouldn't forget to stop working and to visit you.
Mm-hmm. For the first sentence, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. What about the second sentence?
I'm also a little bit confused with the second. It may also have the same context as if I were talking with somebody, and wherever you are in need, I wouldn't forget visiting you. So I would always visiting you.
So I feel like you're explaining them both in the same way. The first one, you're definitely right. That means that what you're trying to say is you always will remember to visit the person, right? So if they need something, you'll be there for them. In the second one, it means that your visits, when you visit together, it's so memorable. It's very easy to remember after the fact. So not that you will always go, but that when you go, you will always remember those times together.
Well, that's very romantic.
Yeah. Awesome. So great sentences. And let's see. Marius, are you ready with yours? There we go. I haven't remembered to write the email to my friend. Okay, I haven't remembered to write the email to my friend, and I haven't. Let's change this to the simple past instead of the perfect. The perfect is a little odd. So we're going to say, I didn't remember to write the email to my friend, and I didn't remember writing the email to my friend. And Marius, explain the difference to us quickly.
I'm not sure.
All right, Aldona, do you think you could give it a try and explain the difference here?
Well, my screen disappeared. The first, I didn't remember to write the emails to my friend. It means that Marius was doing something, and then he stopped doing it to write the email to his friend. For example, he was cooking, and then he stopped that he stopped cooking to go and write an email to his friend.
That would be correct if it were a positive sentence, but because we have didn't in there, it's tougher to explain.
So I surrender.
Okay, all right, I'll give you guys this one. It's been a long class, but you guys have done great. So, I didn't remember to write the email to my friend. It means, obviously, that you never remembered to do the action. It didn't get done. Nothing happened. But in the second sentence, it says, I didn't remember the typo. I didn't remember writing the email to my friend. Means that you wrote an email and you sent the email, but then you forgot that you did it. So like, maybe I wrote an email and I sent it, and then my friend received it and said, oh, hey, thanks for the email. And then I say, what are you talking about? I didn't email you. I forgot about it. So I didn't remember it, but I did do it in the second one. In the first one, I just didn't do it. All right. So I have another class that starts right now. I've got to run. But if you guys have any questions, you can definitely let me know on Verbling or on my Facebook or ask me in the next class, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you soon.
See you
Bye.
soon. Bye. Because no one.